James looked out the window of his spaceship, scanning the darkness of space. After 20 years as a space patrol captain, he thought he had seen everything. He was wrong. "Captain, we found something strange," said Oliver, pointing at the glowing screen. James walked over, his boots making soft sounds on the metal floor. "What is it?" "A ship, sir. A very big ship. Not one of ours." James frowned and adjusted his uniform. His crew of 15 people had been patrolling this empty area for months without seeing anything unusual. "Now this." "Show me," he ordered. The main screen lit up with an image that made James catch his breath. A massive warship floated in them, blackness, its metal hull gleaming under their lights. It was bigger than anything in their fleet and shaped like nothing he had seen before. "Can you read the markings?" James asked. Oliver zoomed in on the side of the mystery ship. "They're in English, sir. It's a human ship." The bridge went quiet. Everyone knew that humans had been trapped in their home system after the Great War. 200 years ago, the Galactic Coalition had made sure of that. "That's impossible," whispered Emma from her communication station. Her blue eyes were wide with surprise. "Scan it again," James ordered, even though he could clearly see the truth on the screen. "Sir," Emma suddenly called out, "they're sending some message." James straightened his back. "Put it on screen." The image changed to show a woman with gray hair pulled back tightly and a face that showed years of hardship. She wore a dark uniform with silver stars on the shoulders. "This is Admiral Elizabeth Bedford of the Earth Federation vessel Resilience," she said in a clear, strong voice. "We've returned to claim our place among the stars." James felt his mouth go dry. After all this time, humans had somehow built a warship and traveled beyond their borders. This would change everything. "Open a channel," he told Emma. When she nodded, he spoke carefully. "This is Captain James Anderson of Galactic Coalition Patrol Ship 7. You are in restricted space. Please explain your presence." Admiral Bedford's face showed no fear. "Captain Anderson, we have traveled far to reach this point. I request a meeting with Coalition leadership. We bring important information." James studied her face, looking for signs of deceit. "The Coalition considers Earth vessels to be restricted to your home system. Your presence here violates that agreement." "The agreement was broken long ago," Bedford replied. "Not by us. We will explain everything, but not over open channels." Oliver leaned close to James. "Sir, their weapon systems are unlike anything in our database. If they wanted to attack, we wouldn't stand a chance," James thought quickly. If he turned them away, he might start a conflict they couldn't win. If he let them through, he could be helping an invasion force. But something in the Admiral's eyes made him hesitate. There was urgency there, but not aggression. "Admiral Bedford, I will escort you to Coalition Station Gamma. From there you can request a formal meeting with leadership, but I must insist that your weapons remain powered down." Bedford nodded. "Agreed, Captain, but time is short. More short than you realize." As James sent the coordinates, he noticed something strange about the human ship. Despite its size and obvious military design, it showed signs of long-term repairs and adaptations. This wasn't a newly built warship. It was a vessel that had been traveling for a very long time. "Sir," Oliver said quietly, "do you think this is wise? We don't know their intentions." James watched as the massive human ship moved into formation behind them, dwarfing their patrol vessel. "No, I don't know if it's wise," James admitted. "But I do know that ship has been through hell to get here. Whatever message they bring, the Coalition needs to hear it." As they set course for Station Gamma, James couldn't shake the feeling that everything was about to change. After centuries of believing humans were safely contained, the galaxy would have to face them again. A humanity that had somehow built a warship powerful enough to cross the stars. And judging by Admiral Bedford's eyes, they hadn't come all this way for nothing. The end Elizabeth stood in her quarters aboard the Resilience, looking at an old photograph in a worn metal frame. It showed a smiling man with kind eyes and a small girl with pigtails. Her family, lost long ago. She touched the glass gently, then placed it back on the shelf when a knock came at her door. "Enter," she called. Robert walked in, his uniform wrinkled from another long shift. At 53, he had been her second in command for 15 years, ever since the previous officer died during the Comet field crossing. "The Coalition station has confirmed our approach," he said. "They're nervous, Elizabeth." She smiled slightly. "I'd be worried if they weren't. A human warship appearing after 200 years would make anyone nervous." Robert handed her a tablet with the latest ship status. "William says the main engine is struggling. We pushed it too hard on the final jump." Elizabeth nodded as she reviewed the report. The Resilience had been built to last, but not forever. 70 years of space travel had worn down even the most carefully maintained systems. "Will it hold until we complete our mission?" she asked. "William thinks so, but we can't risk another long journey. This is our only chance." Elizabeth walked to the viewport and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there was Earth, or what remained of it. No messages had come from home in over 50 years. "The children want to know if we'll ever see Earth again," Robert said quietly. The ship housed over 3,000 people now, many born during the journey. They knew Earth only from stories and old videos. "First, we warn the Coalition," Elizabeth replied. "Then we can think about finding a home." Later, as they approached Coalition Station Gamma, Elizabeth addressed the crew from the bridge. Screens throughout the ship showed her face as she spoke. "For 3 generations, we have carried humanity's last hope across the stars. Today, we make contact with the Coalition that once confined us to our dying world. They will not welcome us. They will fear us. But they must listen." In the control room, young Mary worked at her station, monitoring communications. Born on the Resilience, she had never known any home but the ship. She glanced at William, the old engineer who had taught her to repair the aging systems. "Do you think they'll believe us?" she asked. William's hands, calloused from decades of work, adjusted a control panel. "Probably not at first. Truth is often harder to accept than lies." The station grew larger in their viewports, a massive wheel-shaped structure spinning slowly against the backdrop of a blue-green nebula. Coalition patrol ships moved into formation around the Resilience, tiny compared to the human vessel. "They're hailing us," Mary announced. Elizabeth straightened her uniform. On screen, a stern-faced official appeared. "Admiral Bedford, this is Station Commander Lewis. Your ship will remain at its current position while a delegation is sent to meet with you." "Understood, Commander," Elizabeth replied. "We will prepare a meeting room for your delegation." After the communication ended, Robert approached Elizabeth. "They'll try to board us, search for weapons." "Let them try," she said. "Our systems are designed to reveal only what we want them to see." Hours later, Elizabeth stood in the main conference room as the Coalition delegation arrived. Captain James Anderson was among them, along with officials in formal uniforms. Their eyes widened as they saw the inside of the Resilience, not the gleaming interior of a new warship, but a lived-in space with signs of repairs and adaptations. "Welcome to the Resilience," Elizabeth greeted them. "The last ship to leave Earth." Before the silence, "Admiral," began a tall official, "your presence violates long-standing agreements. The Coalition contained humanity for good reason after the war." Elizabeth's eyes hardened. The containment was a death sentence. Earth's resources were already failing, but that's not why we're here. She activated a display showing a star map. A pattern of red markers spread like a disease across the systems. 70 years ago, we detected these energy signatures near Earth. First one, then hundreds. When we realized what they were, it was almost too late. We built the Resilience not to wage war against you, but to escape what was consuming our world. Indo highlighted several points near Coalition territory, and now we've detected the same signatures here. The enemy that destroyed Earth has found you. The officials looked skeptical, but Captain Anderson stepped forward, studying the map carefully. "What exactly are we looking at, Admiral?" he asked. Elizabeth met his gaze. "The early signs of an infiltration that no one notices until it's too late. The same pattern that preceded Earth's fall. She pulled out a small device and placed it on the table. This contains 60 years of data and evidence. You may think this is a human trick. It's not. We're not here as conquerors. We're here as the only ones who know what's coming. The end. The Coalition Council chamber was the largest room Thomas had ever seen. 12 different species sat around a massive round table, their faces showing varying degrees of concern and distrust. As a junior diplomat, Thomas rarely attended such high-level meetings, but today was different. Today, humans had returned to Coalition space. This human warship must be turned away immediately, insisted George, the security chief. Though born on a distant world, he used a human name for diplomatic purposes. His red skin flushed darker as he spoke. Their history of violence is well documented. Thomas watched as Captain James Anderson stood to address the council. In the 3 days since the human ship arrived, James had spent more time with Admiral Bedford than anyone else. Council members, I've reviewed the evidence provided by the Resilience, James said. I believe their warning deserves serious consideration. George laughed shortly. You've been taken in by their tricks, Captain. Humans are masters of deception. The council leader raised a hand for silence. Bring in the human representative. The doors opened, and Admiral Elizabeth Bedford entered. She walked with confidence despite being surrounded by Coalition guards. Her uniform was clean, but showed signs of many repairs. Admiral Bedford, the council leader began, you claim that Earth has been destroyed by an unknown entity, and that this same entity now threatens Coalition space. These are serious accusations. Elizabeth nodded. They are facts, not accusations. My ship carries the surviving records of Earth's final years. We detected the infiltration too late to save our planet, but we escaped to warn others. Convenient. That we cannot verify your claim since Earth is supposedly destroyed, George said. Send a ship to Earth if you wish, Elizabeth replied calmly. You'll find nothing but silence. They consume everything. Resources, information, eventually entire worlds. Thomas studied her face. Either she was telling the truth, or was the most convincing liar he had ever seen. The council leader leaned forward. You claim these infiltrators are already here. Where? Elizabeth activated a small device projecting a map of Coalition territory. We've detected their energy signatures in these locations. Small at first, but growing. This proves nothing, George insisted. These could be normal energy fluctuations. Council. Members, James interrupted. 3 outposts in these regions have reported communication difficulties in recent months. We dismissed them as technical problems. A murmur spread through the chamber. Thomas felt a chill run down his spine. Even if what you say is true, said the science minister, why should we trust humans? Your ship is clearly built for war. Elizabeth's expression remained steady. The Resilience was built to survive, not conquer. We developed weapons specifically to combat these infiltrators after we discovered their weaknesses. Without them, you have no defense. The debate continued for hours. Thomas watched as the council divided, some believing the human warning, others seeing only a threat. When the formal meeting ended, Thomas found himself assigned to a special committee to investigate the human claims. Later that evening, Thomas visited the Resilience with a small team of Coalition scientists. Lieutenant Mary showed them through the ship, explaining systems as they went. This section houses the families, Mary said as they passed a large open area where children played. Thomas stopped, surprised. Families? On a warship? Mary smiled sadly. The Resilience isn't just a warship. It's all that remains of our civilization. These children were born during our journey. They've never seen Earth. Thomas looked at the children with new understanding. This wasn't an invasion force, it was a floating refuge. In the science lab, William demonstrated the detection equipment they'd developed. The infiltrators emit a specific energy pattern when they communicate with each other, he explained. It's subtle, but once you know what to look for, you can find them. Thomas watched as William activated a scanner. The screen showed a map of the nearby station with several small red dots blinking. What are those? Asked one of the Coalition scientists. William's face grew grim. They're already on your station. That night, Thomas couldn't sleep. If the humans were telling the truth, the entire coalition faced an invisible threat. If they were lying, allowing their warship to remain was dangerous. He was still awake when the emergency alarm sounded. Running to the command center, he found chaos. Communication with an outer sector had been lost completely. "What's happening?" he asked a frantic officer. "Something attacked Outpost Sigma," she replied. "The few transmissions we received, they don't make sense. Talk of people changing, systems failing." Thomas remembered the red dots on William's scanner and made a decision. He needed to speak with Admiral Bedford again. What if the humans were right? What if this was just the beginning? As he hurried through the station, emergency lights flashing around him, Thomas realized that everything was about to change. The line between ally and enemy, truth and deception, survival and extinction might be thinner than anyone had believed. The end Thomas walked quickly through the gleaming corridors of the Resilience, following Lieutenant Mary as she led him deeper into the human ship than any coalition member had been allowed before. Emergency meetings had been going on for days, since the attack on Outpost Sigma. "The Admiral is waiting for you in the war room," Mary said, her voice tight with worry. When they arrived, Thomas found Elizabeth bent over a large table displaying a three-dimensional map of coalition space. Several areas glowed red. "Thomas," Elizabeth acknowledged him without looking up. "I assume you've seen the latest reports?" He nodded grimly. "2 more outposts have gone dark. The Council is finally taking your warning seriously." "Too late," said Robert, who stood at Elizabeth's side. "The pattern is accelerating. It's happening faster than it did on Earth." Thomas studied the map. "What exactly are we fighting?" "You've never fully explained what these infiltrators are." Elizabeth straightened up, her eyes tired from lack of sleep. "We don't know their origin. They appeared near Jupiter first, almost a century ago. They don't have physical bodies as we understand them. They exist as energy patterns that can integrate with technology and eventually organic matter." "Like a virus?" Thomas asked. "Like a parasite," Elizabeth corrected. "They take over systems, then people, then entire infrastructures. By the time Earth realized what was happening, major cities were already compromised." A young officer entered and handed Elizabeth a data tablet. She read it quickly, her face growing darker. "Coalition security has arrested 3 of our science. Team," she said to Robert. "George is claiming we caused the outpost failures." Thomas stepped forward. "I can help with that. I have some influence with the Council." Elizabeth looked at him carefully. "Why would you help us, Thomas? Most of your people still see us as enemies." Thomas thought about the children he'd seen playing on the ship, about the obvious age of the Resilience, about the genuine fear in Elizabeth's eyes when she spoke of the infiltrators. "Because I believe you're telling the truth," he said simply. Later that day, Thomas stood before a special session of the Council, arguing forcefully for cooperation with the humans. "The evidence is clear," he insisted. "The energy signatures, the Resilience detected match exactly what we're seeing at the affected outposts. We need their help." George slammed his hand on the table. "This is exactly what the humans want. Create a crisis, then offer to solve it with their weapons. Once we allow them access to our systems, they'll take control." The debate raged until James Anderson entered the chamber, his face ashen. "Council members, Outpost Prime has just gone dark. 5,000 people, no warning." The room fell silent. Outpost Prime was less than a day's travel from the Central Coalition worlds. "We need to act now," Thomas said into the silence. "The Resilience has weapons specifically designed to fight these infiltrators." The Council leader looked around the table, then nodded slowly. "Captain Anderson, coordinate with Admiral Bedford. Thomas, you will serve as liaison between our forces." 2 days later, Thomas stood on the bridge of the Resilience as it led a small fleet of coalition ships toward the last known location of Outpost Prime. The atmosphere was tense but focused. "Approaching final coordinates," Mary announced from her station. Elizabeth turned to Thomas. "Your people still don't trust us completely. Make sure they follow our lead exactly. One mistake could compromise the entire fleet. The view screen showed their destination ahead, a massive space station surrounded by smaller vessels. It looked normal, but sensor readings told a different story. Energy signatures throughout the station, William reported. They've taken over, completely. Elizabeth activated the ship-wide communication system. All personnel to battle stations, prepare main weapon systems. Thomas watched in fascination as sections of the Resilience transformed, panels sliding away to reveal specialized weapons unlike anything in the Coalition arsenal. Those ships are moving to intercept, Robert warned, pointing to vessels leaving the station. They'll try to board us, Elizabeth explained to Thomas. That's how they spread. Direct contact. The first shots came from the station itself, energy, beams lancing out toward the Coalition ships. Two smaller vessels erupted in flames before the remaining ships could raise their shields. Return fire, targeted pattern Alpha, Elizabeth ordered calmly. The Resilience's main weapons fired, not a destructive blast but instead a focused pulse that washed over the approaching ships. Their engines died immediately. What did you do? Thomas asked, amazed. Disrupted their energy patterns, William answered from his station. It won't destroy them, but it stops them from spreading. For hours, the battle continued. The Resilience moved methodically, protecting the Coalition ships while neutralizing one infected vessel after another. Thomas watched Elizabeth coordinate, the defense with the skill of someone who had trained her entire life for this moment. When the station itself finally went dark, not destroyed but cleansed of the infiltration, Thomas realized he was witnessing history. Humans and Coalition forces working together against a common enemy. Suspicion giving way to respect. This is only the beginning, Elizabeth told him quietly when the immediate danger had passed. They'll adapt to our weapons. They always do. Thomas nodded, understanding at last the burden the humans had carried across the stars. Then we'll adapt too, he said. Together. The end. The command center hummed with activity as Coalition and human officers worked side by side. 3 weeks had passed since the battle at Outpost Prime, and the situation had grown worse. A large display showed red spreading across dozens of systems like a disease. They're adapting faster than we expected, Elizabeth said, her voice betraying rare worry. She hadn't slept in days, and it showed in the dark circles under her eyes. Thomas stood beside her, now officially the Coalition's ambassador to the humans. The Council has evacuated 3 more systems. Where are they concentrating their forces? Robert pointed to a cluster of red dots near the center of the map. Here, our scouts report unusual energy readings. We think it's their command center. The door slid open, and James Anderson entered with William. The old engineer carried a data tablet and looked grave. Admiral, William said quietly, I've completed the analysis of the Resilience's core systems. It's not good news. Elizabeth nodded for him to continue. The main reactor was never designed for the stress we've put it through. The damage is beyond repair. He paused. We have one final operation in it at most. The room fell silent. Everyone understood what this meant. The Resilience was humanity's last home, their final arc. How long? Elizabeth asked. If we keep running at current capacity, 2 weeks, if we push it to maximum output. William hesitated. Maybe one major battle. Elizabeth turned back to the map, studying the red concentration. Then we make it. Count. Later that evening, Elizabeth briefed the Joint Human Coalition command team on her plan. It was bold, perhaps reckless, but no one offered a better alternative. The Resilience will lead a direct assault on their command center, she explained. Our weapons are still effective at close range. If we can destroy their central node, it might disrupt the entire network. And if it doesn't? Asked George, who had finally accepted the human alliance after losing his home station to the infiltrators. Then we've lost one ship instead of a civilization, Elizabeth replied simply. Thomas caught up with Elizabeth as she left the meeting. There must be another way. Your ship carries the last free humans. She stopped walking and turned to face Him. The resilience was always meant to save humanity, Thomas. Sometimes saving means fighting. At least let me come with you, he said. As coalition representative. Elizabeth studied his face for a long moment, then nodded. We leave at dawn. The morning of the attack, Thomas stood on the bridge of the Resilience as the massive ship led a fleet of coalition vessels toward the heart of infiltrated space. Behind them, 3 transport ships carried the children and non-essential crew of the Resilience, a precaution Elizabeth had insisted upon. Mary worked at her station, her fingers dancing across controls. All weapon systems online, Admiral. Core temperature rising but within limits. Elizabeth sat calmly in her command chair, the picture of composure. All ships, maintain formation. Remember your training. They dropped out of faster-than-light travel directly in front of a massive structure, unlike anything Thomas had seen before. It pulsed with eerie light, surrounded by infected ships. That's not a station, Thomas whispered. It's alive. In a way, Robert confirmed, their central consciousness. The enemy reacted instantly. Dozens of ships moved to intercept, while energy beams lashed out from the structure itself. Evasive pattern delta, Elizabeth ordered. Focus fire on those outer nodes. The battle erupted across space. Coalition ships provided covering fire while the Resilience drove steadily toward the central structure. Thomas watched in awe as Elizabeth coordinated the attack with precision, calling out targets and adjusting strategy as the enemy adapted. Admiral, William called out over the noise of battle. Core temperature critical, we're pushing too hard. Elizabeth never took her eyes off the tactical display. Hold course, we're not close enough yet. The ship shuddered as enemy fire broke through their shields in several places. Damage reports flooded in from all sections. Port weapons array down, Mary reported. Hull breach on levels 5 through 8. They were close now, the central structure looming large in their viewports. But the Resilience was failing, its ancient systems giving out under the strain. Elizabeth rose from her chair. Prepare the final protocol. Robert looked up sharply. Elizabeth, there must be another way. There isn't, she said gently. You know what to do. She turned to Thomas. Ambassador, you should head to the evacuation pods. Your people will need leadership in the days ahead. Thomas realized what she was planning. You're going to overload the core. The resulting explosion will destroy their central consciousness, she confirmed. But someone needs to make sure the ship reaches the right position. Thomas felt his throat tighten. I'll stay with you, she shook her head. No, your place is with the survivors. Tell them what happened here. Tell them humans and coalition fought together as equals. As Thomas reluctantly headed to the evacuation area, he heard Elizabeth giving her final orders. The Resilience would make one last charge, straight into the heart of the enemy. From the safety of an escape pod, Thomas watched as the human warship, burning and breaking apart, collided with the central structure. The explosion that followed lit up space like a new star being born. In that brilliant light, humanity's last warship ended its long journey, not in conquest, but in sacrifice. Thu, Andy,